good.
Great to have you on board, and very, very short notice, but very, very grateful without doubt to get you on board. You had a hectic schedule. You had a few podcasts that you were running. You run some podcasts yourself, and what I might do is post this, get everyone to kind of, you can give out the details, and I'll certainly share it on some subsequent posts so they know and are aware of your podcast as well. It'd be great to get a lot of content and insight from yourself, but I'm really, really grateful to have you here. I know at short notice we had some technical difficulties this morning, and unfortunately we couldn't get our coach on board, and then obviously reached out to our very, very good friend over at All the Sombronis, the main man. Yep. So, he I think he was talking to you the same time he was talking to me. So,
because he sent me a text of your message to him. Like, I know John. And he was like, "Hey, because you're a technology guy. You want to do this?" Yeah. I was like, "Let me make sure I can get in." So, on it. Just excited to be able to talk about all things college soccer. Well, I feel like I have a really big head compared to everybody else.
I have to come in a bit closer, see. You got a little. I'm doing it from a distance, so no one can see my big, the depth and breadth of my big ball noggin, mate. But yeah, look, Coach Scott Phipps, a very good friend of ours. Obviously, you worked alongside Coach, which is fantastic. I think. Yeah. AP has always been one of those programs, and I know, Phippers is the type of guy that has his heart on the sleeve, and he works extremely diligently to make sure that he gets those boys over there revved up, and they're always kind of it's been rough for them, and they've had some fantastic seasons, and also Coach has done a great job of just pulling together so many international students, and it was, obviously competed at a high level in NCAA Division 2, and obviously you were part of that process without doubt. So, we'll cover off a few bits and pieces today, but look, one and all, U90 Nation were very, very grateful, and I know that it was very short notice for Coach Shaun Soderling, who is the head coach of Brescia University in Kentucky, based out of Kentucky. It's an NAIA women's soccer program. I know Coach a lot of our, whether it be our clients or whether it be, kids that we train, ask the question about, okay, what's the difference? So we'll delve into that a little bit, get your thoughts about, what the NAIA can provide as a potential pathway for student athletes who might be thinking about going down that pathway. Without doubt, I think it's a very, very rewarding one, and we've certainly had a lot of success over the years with a lot of our recruits going on graduating and also playing within the top 25 on the men's side at least. Our programs like Hastings College in Nebraska and Medellin University. A few of our boys actually won a national championship in the NAIA historically at Hastings and the other year. So the NAIA is certainly something that I want to delve into, so our viewers can get more clarity about what that is. Outside of that, getting the understanding around what the differentiators are. I guess between the strength of the NAIA and typically what the strengths are as opposed to other governing bodies and other collegiate divisions, notably in the NCAA. We'll also look at it's from the perspective of really getting together a whole group of kids from all around the world. How you're managing the university. Obviously, you've been across it at All Sombronis and other universities in the D1 landscape or otherwise, getting your thoughts and understanding around, how you manage that process as a first-year head coach. And I guess you've been across the landscape, so whether it be D1, D2, or the NAIA, and really interestingly as well, you had a strong history around the high school market. And I want to really ask the question about how you prepared a lot of those kids to compete and get ready for a transition potentially into a 4-year market, and or even 2-year if, academically they weren't there, and how you went about that. And certainly as we go on, I want to get to know you a little bit more, get to know a little bit more about the Brescia program, about you as a coach, a little bit about, who you were growing up and how you came into this whole beautiful round game that we love and adore from all around the world, I guess, and participate in, whether as a coach or as a player. So definitely wanting get some more clarity around that. And then we'll take some questions from some of our viewers and answer some of those questions if we have time. Just so you understand, Coach, you're probably familiar with the fact that because you are tech savvy, and that's what Coach Jipstone mentioned. So with Instagram Live, it's probably only an hour, and if we cut off short, I'll let you know how we're going to time. Put the timer up here, but if we do cut off for any purpose, what we'll do is we'll take a little bit of a break and then we'll bring you on board for a bit. But I'm also conscious of time. We're going to head potentially into midnight and beyond, right?
Look, man, my wife was joking with me the other day. She was just like, when do you go to bed? And I was like, especially during this pandemic, I was like, around probably between 1 and 2, which I normally, it's about the time I go to bed anyways. And she's like, What are you doing? And I was like, I'm working. She's like, what do you mean you were working? I was like, I have you at home during the day. I've got the 2 kids at home during the day. That's the only time I'm going to get stuff done is when you're all asleep. So, and on Wednesday nights too, I'm typically up anyways doing our podcast. We got done recording at 10:59:30, and I was like, I got 30 seconds to hop on and hurry up and got on. So, for me, especially for doing stuff like this, time's not really anything for me.
We're extremely grateful, and it's going to be great to uncover some golden nuggets of information, as I call them here on the College Inside the Live. One and all.
I can see who's all been on.
That's okay. The College Insider Live, we have Coach Shaun, Soderling, one and all. Thank you, United Nation, for joining us. Thank you, Coach, for joining us last minute as well on this exclusive live interview. Really, really excited to get going. So, Coach, I'm going to go back in time a little bit, but I'm also going to look at, I guess, Brescia University, the team, and, it went through a big transition, and I think it had a very, very rough year last year prior to you jumping on board. So obviously off the back of that, I guess that there's an opening for you and you had an opportunity, and obviously with all your experience across D1, D2 and otherwise, all your years across the landscape, you've been, granted a great opportunity to build a program. I think that if I look at it, it was a very, very rough year. But with the former coach, but I think that, if you look at the River States Conference unto itself, it also houses a lot of very strong teams, without doubt. 2020 and 2021 and beyond is a new year. We also face a interesting paradigm with what's happening globally with COVID. What's in store for Brescia women's soccer for 2020 onwards? What are the things that you're looking at in terms of trying to implement new methodologies, new approaches, new recruiting, tactics and otherwise to help bolster the team and make it a really competitive program over the next year and beyond? And from one coach to another, I know that it's not a flick of the light switch. It's going to take some time. Maybe you can give us some clarity about it and discuss what you're going to, what's in store with Brescia women's soccer.
Well, I've been fortunate enough to work with some great coaches in my time since I've been in college, and I think for me too with Brescia, what's really helped me is you kind of alluded to my high school coaching career, and anyone who knows me, when it came to the high school teams I took over, I never took over a team that was 19-2 the year before, or teams that I would go to didn't have good records. And there's something I don't know. Some friends of mine joke about how I'm the I don't know if you guys have this show in Australia, but it's called Fixer Upper here, where they basically take old houses and remodel them to where it's something new.
Yeah, I actually just started showing a lot of those. Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah. So the kind of joke like I'm like the Chip Gaines of soccer, I guess, and I've got a soft spot in my heart for those teams as well. And I think the thing that has helped me, or that's going to help me with Brescia, is the fact that I've got that experience when I first started coaching, is taking over teams in the same situation as Brescia, and making those teams better and significantly better, and winning championships with those teams as well. It was something that, I think that the quote is always, "You never think that you're ready for a college head coaching job," and I think for a while I believed that. But then there was just a part of me that was like, I know I could do this. I know I could. And a lot of that came from Coach Phipps at AB. When I was at University of Evansville, Coach Phipps actually was doing RID camp with us. And that's where I met him at the year before he took the AB job. And we all the coaches, we went out for pizza that night. And he and I ended up being the last two guys there. And we just got to talking and got to basically talking shop and just talking about soccer, talking about coaching and what we love to do. And I expressed my interest in wanting to recruit. I knew that I could do it. I wanted to be able to travel around and actually be involved in that process rather than just go and work at camps and just kind of tell kids about our school. I actually wanted to be in that recruiting process. And I had a great staff that I got to work with at the University of Evansville. Mike Jacobs was our head coach, who's now the technical director at Nashville SC. Coach Jacobs taught me so much. I kind of tell people that it's his fault that I'm in the college game because I was enjoying my time coaching high school. And then randomly I got a text message from him one day that was like, "Hey, if you're in town, stop by the office." And that's kind of where it all got started. That I had a college job open for me. So, for me with Brescia, when I interviewed, I guess I got to take it back a little bit. So I was teaching high school at the beginning of this year. And still was helping out with AB on the recruiting side of things. And then I've been recruiting with their women's program for probably the last 4 years, I believe it's been. I've been was with the men's team for about 6 years. And I've noticed that a majority of my friends in college coaching are all on the women's side of the game. And I don't know why that's the case, but it's just how it was. So I was working a lot of ID camps with some friends of mine and getting to meet a lot more coaches around the country. And so many coaches are like, "Why don't you coach on the women's side?" And I was like, well, I did. I started off like the first, however many years of my coaching career, I coached girls. And then I went to the boys side of the game and just happened to kind of be in it. And I realized that was that's where I needed to go to. I needed to make that transition full time. Now, if you would have been at the convention in Baltimore this past January, you would have heard me say that I'm going to transition within the next year, probably around 2021. Then I'm going to try to go full-time on the women's game. But this opportunity to go to Brescia, the campus is about 40 minutes from my house, so I didn't have to uproot my family. My wife is a school principal, so we were able to keep her and her. And my kids are in a very good school district as well. So, like I said, the fact that we didn't have to move was significant for us. But I think with what we're going to do at Brescia, and I got to meet with the players. So here's the interesting part that's always like the funniest. It's going to be a stand-up skit one day. But my first week, I'm so excited. I've got my schedule lined out, what we're going to be doing for the next 3 weeks, and we're just going to hit this thing running. And the night before my first day, the men's coach texted me. He's like, "What do you got planned for the week?" And I was like, and I was just spitting all this stuff off. Now, there's also like a 10, 11-year age difference between him and myself, with me being older. And I'm just going through all this stuff. And he was like, so nobody told you that we're on spring break? And I was like, he goes, well, I'll just let you know that we're on spring break this week. I was like, all right, whatever. So I just got everything ready and was like, all right, this is going to give me a week to just to kind of get accustomed to everything, get in my office and whatnot. And so I got in the office. I was planning for the whole week. I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Just really started going in. If you actually go in my office, my plans for the following week are still up on my dry erase board. What our sessions were going to be like and what our schedule was. And so the players were super awesome. They all actually came back early on the Sunday before school started back up. So that we could have a team. And I told him, I was like, we can meet on Monday if you want to. Sunday would be awesome. But I don't want to force you guys to come back early. And all of them came back early. And I was like, hey, let's still meet on Sunday. So I was able to introduce my family to them. And then we really talked about, where this program's heading. And the first three things that I said to them, I said, before we talk about whatever that we're going to do going forward, you got to know three things. I love you, I trust you, and I believe in you. And if you don't understand those three things, everything that we're going to talk about for the next however many minutes is never going to sink in. Now, on top of that, what you've got to know is that when whoever you're looking at across in this room, you love them, you trust them, and you believe in them too. And if all of us in this room have those three things, nobody can tell us anything differently. Like the world is ours. And so you could tell from that moment they were locked in. And so the thing is, I'm significantly different than every coach they've ever had, whether it was in high school or club, or even the previous coach. I'm super different. If you ask, Scott Phipps would say that I'm weird. And I think a lot of my friends would just say that I'm quirky. But I told him that I'm bringing energy every single day, 110%. And I'm never going to ask you, if you're at this level and I'm here, I'm never going to drop all the way down to meet you. And I'm not going to ask you to come all the way up here to me. We're going to find a spot that we can match up at. And I told the girls too, with me, social media is my big thing, as anybody who follows me can see. And with having the podcast, I was like, unfortunately for you, people are going to be watching us now. But the best thing for you is that people are going to be watching us now. I'm watching their game film and, haven't won a conference game in 5 years. But if you look at the games that they played last year in their conference, every one of them was super, super close. And they were in it. They were this close. And just something triggers and it happens and they end up losing the game. And so I told the team, I was like, any other coach could come in, wipe everybody out and start new and be successful. I want to be successful with you because you're there. You're right there. And that's what got me excited about the job. Having, various opportunities to go different places. Like I said, when I met the players at Brescia and I really got to understand the story of the program, it tugged at my heart. I knew that was something I wanted to be a part of. So when it comes to whenever we can get back, hopefully 2020, for the fall season, you're going to see a team like you've never seen at that school before. We're going to be, flying up and down the field. Obviously, we're trying to score a lot of goals. If you follow my career, that's what I'm known for is the teams I get to that I've been a head coach of. We score lots of goals. The last high school team I was a coach of is the highest scoring team of all time in the state of Indiana. It's a record that I think, obviously that could be cool for somebody to break it, but I don't think it's going to be broken in my lifetime, which will also would be cool as well. But and I had some special players on that team that year. But I think I'm a person that when I'm with a team and you see me, I've always got it on. I let everybody know who I'm with. And you talked about Coach Phipps wearing his heart on his sleeve. Man, I picked up so much from him, working so closely with him and John Friedel, who's now at Eastern New Mexico State, or Eastern New Mexico, I'm sorry. That was with us at AB for a little bit, just being able to pick their brain and see a different side of things, which I think really helped me out in my career. And on the flip side of the social media thing is Mike Jacobs always told me, you have to be good at coaching and one more thing. So I always figured that my one thing was the social media side, was the creative content, designing type stuff. So, what we want to do at Brescia is I want to change the mindset of, we don't want people to come to Brescia just to play soccer. We want people to come to Brescia to get their degree and win championships. And we really believe that we can do that. 2020 class, a majority of it was done before I got there. But we've been able to pick up some pieces since I've got on, some players I'm really excited about. But our 21 class, which is the interesting part, because there's a lot of players that are interested in Brescia now for that 21 class that I have only been in the job now for about 6 weeks. 6 weeks ago, these players would have never considered our program. And I think it's the excitement that we're building with what we're doing, and through those visual images and visual this content that they're seeing on their phones all the time and that we're sending to them is really building up this excitement. And that's what a lot of the players and the recruits that we've talked to have all said. There's this excitement, there's this buzz that you're just not getting at other places. And I always say that at Brescia, it's just different. And we're going to prove that every single day, because like I said, we believe that we're going to compete for championships pretty soon. And I know that that's a cliche thing for coaches to say, but we honestly believe that, because we believe in each other, we believe in this program, and with where the program's been, there's nowhere else to go but up.
So you've touched on so many key points there, in particular the whole concept around buy-in. And buy-in, sometimes that could be a loaded thing where you get a lot of these coaches that are very rah-rah about it, like, I want you to buy in, and there's no feeling behind it. And buy-in means that inevitably you become family, right? And if you want to compete at the highest levels, it's about instilling this notion in every single person that is part of it. Everyone's going to compete together, but we're going to compete together as a family. So I think you've mentioned something that really stands out for me, and that sets a precedent for your program and what you're trying to achieve there. I think that's very, very interesting. And I think I took that that's always been something that's been part of parcel of any competitive environment that I played in. Sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes when it was very, very successful. When everyone really bought in and came together like a family in a team, wherever I may have played competitively, obviously we achieved more. So I think that's very, very important. I think also you touched on, a few of the things that I myself and the rest of my staff have basically tried to instill in a lot of these younger student athletes that are jumping on board. You mentioned not many people from the outside, and if I talk to someone here locally in Australia, would know anything about Brescia. The power of social media means that you can, really be front and centre with student athletes, and if you engage them correctly, if you show them that there is resources, there are infrastructure, there is everything that you need here to succeed on and off the field, and like you said, setting through visuals and visualizations and whatnot, that's a really powerful way for these kids to really be able to embrace a new adventure. So it resonates with me without doubt. I think that's a very good strategy. In effect, every single one of our clients, we do the same. There's a very powerful medium to be leveraged and platform across social media. Leverage it, we'll guide you through it. But it allows you to connect with coaches who may be outside our network, right? Who we might not have a relationship with, but who are heavy on social media, and you'd be able to engage them. So the more you tap into our network, and the more you work on building content and then connecting with all the people within in the Upper 90 family, then you're going to be able to open up windows of opportunities to schools that you may not have had the opportunity to ever kind of uncover. So I think you mentioned something that's very, very powerful there. That and back to your last point in terms of family, I deviated a little bit. I think what really hit home for me, I just jumped on Netflix and I'm not on Netflix often. I try not to be, but
kids are on it.
so my partner and I, we were watching. We actually binge watched The Last Dance, right? And yeah, with Mike Jordan and you know the '98 club and you know that Bulls team, and it was such a telling inside view of you know what it takes to compete at the highest level. And look, Jordan can beat whoever Jordan is, and he was what he was. But you know, and a lot of his teammates would have turned around and said, "Oh, you know, he was, for lack of better terms, an asshole." But he demanded the most, and he expected you to compete at his level, right? And so a lot of, you know, family also means that it's not always rose-colored glasses, and it's not always, you know, sunny and rosy, right? It is roughing it as well, and you're going to lock heads sometimes as well. So I think it's interesting that you mentioned family, because it does embrace the other sides of it too. And sometimes you're going to get, I always say, I'm still a coach today, and I say to my kids, sometimes I'm going to have to break you down to build you up.
Yep.
Right. Because every single kid that I interact with comes from a very coddled environment for the most part, not all, where, you know, they're nurtured and they don't step out of the fold. And that's a good thing. Nurturing is a very, very prominent and important part of raising children. But at the same time too, as those children grow and evolve, they have to get up and a wall and sometimes break through it on their own. And I think you mentioned something that's really, really powerful there, what you're trying to implement. So I'm really, really excited. I think there's some phenomenal opportunities that are available for any of the student athletes that will jump on board with you with that kind of mindset and vision. And I'm hoping that you guys transition to something that's going to be pretty epic over the next few years and beyond. So congratulations again. Let's go back in time a little bit, Coach. Tell me more about you, because anyone can look at your profile and they'll, you know, tell us more about a young Shaun growing up. How did soccer become part of your DNA, I guess, and was it something you fell into or fell in love with at a very early age? And then talk about, you know, everything leading up to, you know, working with, you know, Scotty and otherwise. But give us some more clarity about, you know, a young Shaun.
Man, young Shaun. Grew up in southern Indiana, which, you know, if anybody knows about Indiana, it's cornfields and basketball.
Yeah.
So my grandfather was a college basketball player. My uncle actually played basketball and soccer. And when I was born, he was a senior. And I grew up in a house with my grandparents, my mom, my aunt, my uncle. So big family, all in the same house. And I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. Which, you know, for me, being able to be around my grandfather who, if anybody knows, I'm super short. So I'm barely 5'10", if that. So back in the day, I was significantly short. I never grew till college. My grandfather, you know, was a power forward and a center in basketball. And so when I learned basketball, he taught me how to play down low rather than like a point guard for my size. So basketball and baseball were like a big thing to me. My uncle played soccer and tried to get me to play, and I can remember going out in the yard. We had 6 acres that we lived on, and I remember going out and him just kicking the crap out of my legs, and me being like, I want nothing to do with this sport. Was probably, gosh, I want to say it was 5th grade, playing baseball. We had I think it was a practice, and if anybody knows anything about weather in the Midwest in the summer times, it is crazy hot and crazy humid. And I guess something in my system inside of me was like, not today, my man. And so I was actually going to field a ground ball, and I just fell right over. And my grandfather took me to the doctor, My doctor was, telling my grandfather what was going on and what he was thinking. And this guy was a good family friend of ours, the doctor was. And I remember him looking at me saying, he goes, I need you to do something to get back into baseball or to get back into basketball. I was like, what's that? He goes, you're either going to have to play soccer or you're going to have to run cross country. And I was like, excuse me? Because my doctor is actually a soccer referee. And he was like, you got to choose one of those two. He's like, we got to build that respiratory system back up, cardio up. He's like, so that way you can still compete. And I was like, right, whatever it takes to get me to play basketball, I'll do it. But I'm not running cross country. No way. So I went home and was like, all right, I guess I'm going to play soccer. And threw some egg crates on my leg and told my uncle, like, all right, like, what do I do? And he gave me his old 1990, I think it was 1990 World Cup Tango ball. That if anybody knows those balls, they're basically concrete. Yeah. I grew up playing with basically this concrete ball, and I had, like I said, I grew up on 6 acres, and it was basically, I'd get home from school, and my grandfather would be like, all right, we'll see you when it's dark. And I would just go out on these 6 acres if I had a golf club, a soccer ball, whatever it may be, and that's where I did my practices at. And I started playing soccer. My mom signed me up for a rec league, and I just remember, like, not knowing, like, none of my friends like soccer, because I graduated high school in 2002, so, like, I'm in high school in the 90s, and soccer wasn't a cool thing. And then the 94 World Cup, I saw those denim jerseys, and I saw Alexi Lawless's long red hair and glorious beard. I saw Marcelo Balboa with the long hair, the earrings, and the beard. And I just remember looking at my uncle while we were watching the game, and I was just like, those dudes are so cool. But as I grew up as a kid, and I still to this day, I'm a massive pro wrestling fan. So I've always been into that, like, larger than life personality. So seeing Dean Balboa, I was hooked the moment I saw those guys play. So I played at my home league, and just the following year, after my first year, my mom was like, hey, do you want to play soccer again? I was like, yeah, I guess so. Like, sure. And then the next year, hey, do you want to sign for soccer? Yeah, I guess so. Well, the more and more I started playing, the more people in my town, which I grew up in a very small town, were all like, oh, Soderling's a soccer guy. And I noticed that, like, the way my friends were getting noticed for basketball, I was getting noticed for soccer. And I was like, well, maybe, like, this is my thing. So I just kept with it. And the guy who was our high school coach before I got to high school is a great man. He's a great friend of mine. Literally, if you played soccer, his camps were awesome, but you were scared to death to play for him because he was so, like, hardcore. And I actually was like, I'm not going to play in high school because I can't play for that guy. I'm scared of him. I want nothing to do with it. And going into that summer, he actually had retired from coaching and became a school principal. And his assistant took over. And I was like, all right, like, yeah, like, I can play. And played high school soccer, played varsity, and just loved every bit of it. And my high school coach, who was from England, would always tell me, you're going to be a coach one day. And I was like, nah, man, I hate little kids. Like, it's not going to happen. Because I always assumed coaching with coaching little ones. And my senior year, one of my mom's friends, her daughter was a 5-year-old and played in the rec league in town. And she's like, hey, it'd be really cool if the high school kids came out and worked with the kids. Like, would you want to come with our team? I was like, oh, yeah, sure. So basically all I was there for was, like, to run around with the kids and do drills. And I would do cartwheels when they scored. And everybody's like, man, like, you should really think about this coaching thing. I was like, no, I don't like little kids. Not my thing. Go off to college and play at a junior college, Vincent's University in Indiana. And my college coach, Roy Inglis, was just like, hey, you should really think about coaching. And I was like, I've told people this my whole life. I hate little kids. I'm not doing it. He's like, well, what about older kids? I was like, sure, I guess. So he's like, I got this club team that I need a coach for. I'd really like for you to do it. So I had now, granted, I went to college at 18. I'm a late graduate. So I just turned 18 going to college, and my season gets over with. My coach gives me a U14 girls team. And I'm like, okay, like, I got this. I've played for a long time. I grew up with really good coaches. I can do this. And on our podcast, I famously tell a story about how my very first practice I ever coached was the worst 2 hours of my life. And I think if you were to go back and ask those players, it was the worst 2 hours of their life as well. And that night, instantly, I went back to my head coach in college and went to his office. It was just like, man, I was like, that sucked. I was like, how do I get better at that? I was like, because I don't want to go through that again, and I don't want those kids to go through that again. And he introduced me to, at the time it was the NSCAA, which is now United Soccer Coaches, and he introduced me to coaching education. He actually brought on, we had the E-license at our college, and he brought it there, and, I did that course. I was like, oh, this is cool. And he was telling me, go get your D, go get your C, yada, yada, yada. And I was just like, I was hooked on it. And so I graduated college and was offered a high school head coaching job with some players I had coached on my club team, and was like, yeah, like this would be cool to coach a school team, because anybody knows me, I'm a big school spirit guy. Like when I was in high school, I loved spirit days. I loved dressing up. I loved showing my pride for my town and for my school. Wherever I've been a teacher at, I've been the same way. And also, for homecoming days, like that's a big thing for me, is to get dressed up. But I took this high school job, and I really liked it. And I had a great group of girls that I literally, our school was randomly in the middle of like the world's largest cornfield in my mind. And the thing was, like, when you would come in town, you would see these like crazy like UFO looking lights in the distance. Well, the school was built up on a massive hill, and you could see the soccer and football field lights from way back into town. And I loved it there. It was a great experience. But my real job at that time, I used to be a radio DJ, and my job had actually transferred me to another location. So I was able to move back home where I grew up at for this job, and I was talking to a friend of mine who was a high school coach, and he was like, yeah, he's like, a buddy of mine's looking for a club coach. Do you want to talk to him? I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, whatever I can do to get involved. And I met a good friend of mine and a big mentor, Scott Wilson. He had me come over. He was a coaching director at the time. And he was like, I had never like interviewed for a coaching job. I just had always been told, like, all right, hey, the job is yours. And so I showed up. I was like, what do I do? He's like, here's the girls. I want you to run a session. So I had like no prep, didn't know what I wanted to do. I was just like, okay. And so I just kind of went to the Rolodex of sessions in my mind, and worked with this team. And when I let them go for their first water break, the manager of the team came over and goes, hey, I'm John, and, nice to meet you, Bob. I was like, oh, cool. He's like, so Scott just told me you've got the job. And I was like, what? We're not even done with the practice yet. Which the cool thing was, Scott was the head coach of the local high school team at the time, which had been crazy successful. Regional appearances, 5 Sweet 16 appearances, and just, I think they had won like 10 section or district championships in a row. And about midway through our club season, he was like, hey, man, he's like, you coached at high school, didn't you? I was like, yeah, that's where I'm coming from. He's like, I want you to join our staff. I was like, all right, cool. Like, to do what? And he was like, you'll be the JV head coach. And he's like, you'll be like our varsity associate head coach. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I did it. And then I just, like, the more I thought about it, I got really worried, because I had never been an assistant coach. I'd always been the head coach. And so I remember like calling Scott up one day and just like, man, like, I'm really scared about this because I don't know how to be an assistant coach. And I'm not hiring you to be an assistant coach. What you do is what I want you to do here. He's like, and I look at it as we basically have 2 head coaches working together, making these teams better. So Scott really just let me do my thing. Never really questioned anything that I did. Had so much faith and belief and trust in me that I don't know if I would do the same with a young 20-something-year-old kid, fresh into the career. And he would he'd come into my classroom like, hey, here's this. What do you think? What would you do? And just really, man, he just really built me up to where we had won some championships there, and it was around that time, our third season there. He's like, man, he's like, what do you think about head coaching again? I was like, oh my gosh, like I think I'm ready for it. I'd love to. And the joke is that at the time, my mom told me, because I'd only coached girls, that if I ever got married and had kids, I would have all girls. So in my mind, I was like, I need to find a boys team to go coach. So I interviewed for a job up at Vincent's Lincoln High School in Indiana for their boys team. I was very, very lucky that one of the players who was on the team, who at the time was one of their best players, I had known him since he was a very, very little kid. And most of the boys who were on the team, when I was in college, actually ref their little league games or their youth rec league games. So I was familiar with them, but not like 15 years later. So I got that job. My wife, who at the time was my girlfriend, got a teaching job there, and we moved up there. And very similar situation. A team that had been successful at one point, but was kind of on the down, needed some fresh energy. And I came in there and just kind of tried to make it as close to a college program as possible. And when you talked about like how I was able to really get things turned around, I think that at the time, because I had built such a good relationship with Mike Jacobs, and he was always sharing information with me and things to do with my teams. And I basically kind of took I asked him, like, what do you look for in recruits based off of the roles on the field? And he basically gave me the blueprint. And I was like, well, this is what I'm going to teach my kids to do. And that's what I taught our kids to do. And we went on to be insanely successful. And, our last season, we finished up 19-1. Like I said earlier, the highest scoring team of all time in the state of Indiana. And we had a player that broke the record for most goals in a season, another player that broke the record for most assists in a season, but he also became the state's career leader in assist. We did some amazing things that year that town and that school is going to be talking about for a very long time. They haven't had anything like it since, nor had they had anything like before that. I'll never forget our second season there. My wife, who still at the time was my girlfriend and super, super supportive of me, was sitting in the crowd for our first game that second season. And it was, it's crazy to say this, but it was standing room only. Like kids were parking their trucks on the outside of the fence because they couldn't get into the game. So they had to park their trucks and sit up in their trucks just to watch. And I think some alumni had been sitting around her, and she was listening to them talk, and they were like, man, like, this guy's helped put our school on the map. And I knew that was true the moment that I went to the convention. It was in Kansas City that year. I had on one of our shirts that said Alice's Soccer. And went to Kansas City, and I had so many people walk up to me. It's like, oh, you've got the Richardville kid. You've got the Ramirez kid. Like, your team's pretty good. And it was like, how do you know who we are? It's like stuff like that, like built up confidence, to where then, Mike Jacobs asked me to come on staff at the University of Evansville. And at that time, I had kind of thought about, like I said earlier, like I was really into the high school head coaching thing, but, I had always thought about the whole college ordeal, and Coach Jacobs got me into it. And like I said, I kind of explained the story with Coach Phipps getting involved at AB. And he was, when he took that job at Alderson Broadus, I can remember like being a part of that process with him, and him calling me on the updates of, what the interview was like, and had they offered it because like I said, we gotten really close his last year at Rockhurst, and there just came a point where he would just like called me one day. He's like, after he got the job, he's like, dude, I want you to come out here. And I was like, what? He's like, I want you to come out here. He's like, I want you to be a part of the staff. He's like, I know and I believe in what you can do, and I think that can help us. So we went into a crazy situation at AB, and was able to kind of get things turned around in year one, to where we knew, okay, hey, this is giving us a good guide that let's try to win a conference championship in year 4. And we turned around in 2016 and won the conference championship that year. And from going to where we were a PK away from winning it, and then getting knocked out early in the conference tournament the next year, and then going through it and winning it in 2016. Like I can still remember, the game. I can still remember Franco hitting the game winner as soon as OT started, and like it was insane, absolutely insane. And again, Scott was so helpful. I think there's something about Scott coaches that me getting to work with them that they're just like, hey, do what you do. And Scott really let me kind of take control of like our social media and really let me get involved in the recruiting side. And of course, Scott's a fantastic recruiter, and like I said, you know Scott pretty well. I used to always tell people that I can get you the homecoming date, but it's your job to get them to say yes. And Scott is one of the best, I guess we could call it a closer in this. I get so excited for players to go meet him on campus and to talk to him because he just, you feel that passion. Like you said, he wears it on his sleeve and you really believe in what he's trying to do. And so I kind of watch that and say like, okay, like when I'm in that position, this is what I want it to be like. And you mentioned buy-in. I think if you were to ask my wife something about me as a coach, I think that's the first thing that she would tell you. And that's the thing that she always tells people. Shaun is a buy-in guy. He presents this plan and he wants you to buy into it. And when people buy into it, it happens. And so now I'm testing that theory of, can I get people to buy in virtually? Just because that's our only ways of communication. Like we have a player in Scotland. We just got a recruit in Mexico. Looking at other international players that we're trying to bring in. And it's taking that, it's using that social media just to get people interested into our program. And we've got some really big things social media wise coming up that we're really excited about. That I wish I could tell you about. But unfortunately, if I did that, I don't think this show would go on any longer. But I think it's stuff that's really going to help us put Brescia on the map. And like I said, we've got some players that are going to come in that when people come visit us or they come watch us play, they're going to look and say, I want to play with them. And that's really kind of, how this whole thing got started, because I remember what it was like when I got that passion to play, when I wanted to go to that next level. And I want to give these players that same ability, because I feel like with NAIA, as you were kind of talking about earlier, like I really believe that when I was at University of Evansville, we played the NAIA national champion, and they absolutely destroyed us. They played the Division I national champion the week before us and destroyed them. That was my experience of the NAIA.
Which program was that?
Do what?
Which program was that?
Lindsey Wilson.
Lindsey Wilson, of course.
Yeah, their men's team is absolutely phenomenal. And that was kind of my eye-opener, because I was always under the assumption the best play at Division I, then you have got Division II, then you got Division III, then there's JUCO, then there's NAIA. And my eye-opening experience, I was like, hey, that is not true. Like, there are good players in every division. The thing I feel about NAIA is it's a place where you can go get that experience to get to the next level beyond college and play at a professional level, but still have a true student-athlete experience. Still be able to be in the, still being able to study abroad and get the full experience that you wouldn't get at a Division I level. I've got a friend that's a D3 coach that played Division I at a very, very prominent big-time school. And they've always said the thing that they love is that their kids can go study abroad if they want to. They can go do internships if they want to, because they know if they would have went to their coach during their time and said, hey, like, I want to go study abroad, that the coach would tell them, do you want to go study abroad, or do you want to win a national championship again? Or say, everybody would laugh back, I just want to play, I want to win a national championship. So I think for NAIA, it gives kids, especially the international students, I mean, it gives them a platform to showcase their talents, still play well, and still get that true student experience. The NWSL Rookie of the Year last year, Bethany Bolcher, NAIA player for 4 years. So especially on the women's side, for people to say, oh, I don't think the NAIA produces good players, Bethany Belcher disproves that point. We've got fantastic players, and the players that we're looking at bringing into Brescia are players who their other offers are D1 schools, because they know that we've got a platform that we can give them to get to that next level that they're trying to get to, but at the same time really enjoy the experience of being a student. And that's what I've really learned the most about the NAIA in just the month that I've been involved.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on some phenomenal points again. I think that, and again, Coach, just conscious of time, we've probably roughly got about 7 minutes, if that. But what we might do is just continue the conversation once it hits the limit. So, yeah, I mean, look, you hit off some interesting and very important points, and I think that if we go back in time to the dialogue, the start of the dialogue was really about your evolution as a coach and how you came to fruition. But then I think all of those experiences built a platform for you to be able to transition across different roles and different divisions. And yet again, those experiences gave you an opportunity to work under great coaches, which formed systems in your mind, the way to recruit kids and also to help implement, strategies for them to grow as individuals, but also as athletes, and then, as footballers, as soccer players as well. So I think it's very, very telling that you mentioned that. And I think what I will say from our own experience is the kids who have embraced the NAIA process, on our end at least, have had an amazing experience, right? Look, are all college soccer programs covering the same plot? No, I mean, the whole premise behind what we do is to make sure that we work with coaches that, just like yourself, that we can trust, that we know have a good energy about them, are building up great systems, understand the game at the core of what the game is and the evolution of the game, in the modern sense of what I mean by that, and are implementing that so these kids are going into environments where they're going to grow and evolve, have a platform, and then continue on their journey. And what I mean by that is a lot of kids don't understand that even if you go to an NAIA program, that doesn't mean that the quality of education is poor. You've got a strong quality of education. Got a lot of our kids who have graduated from NAIA schools now who are back either here in Australia or over in the States, who are working for top-tier organisations, right? So I think that, the interesting thing for me was when I was in Belgium and I was holding a speech at an international school up there, and I was going through all the different divisions, and the athletic director of the school was an ex-basketball player. I think he played semi-pro, maybe, I don't think he was an NBA guy, but he when I hit NAIA on my presentation, he stopped me and he said, guys, you understand that the NAIA is actually a phenomenal opportunity and pathway for you to grow and evolve as a student athlete. But a lot of these kids were only set on, well, they hear the big brand name schools that they see on TV, on ESPN or otherwise. And it's just a misconstruction in their mind around what this pathway can entail. So, Coach, I think in the second half we'll go into the strength of the NAIA women's, level, and then talk about, how it compares to the greater soccer landscape, because you've been across all of those different facets. And I guess I really want to get clarity around the pathways that an NAIA program can enable, because we have kids who currently, for example, are Central Methodists. We've got kids who are at other top 25 nationally ranked NAIA programs, and what they're telling us is the level is stupendous. It's very, very good with kids from all around the world. Also want to touch on your recruiting policies as well when we jump back on. United Nation, we just going to take a short break just for another 3 to 5 minutes, and then I'll send out another announcement when we jump on board for the second part of this live and exclusive interview with none other than Coach Shaun Soderling of Brescia Women's Soccer. The NAIA will be back, one and all, very, very shortly. Coach will log you back on in the next 5 minutes or so. We'll see you soon.
Sounds good. We got to answer Pete's question on the.
And we've got to answer Pete's question. So, what do you look for in a recruit, or what qualities excite you about recruits to reach out to you? Let's keep that top of mind. We'll answer that question when we jump back on board.